the Nationalist Movement 1885 to 1919. In this lesson, we are going to know about the nationalist movement in India. Children, in our last lesson, we read that the revolt of 1857 was suppressed by British, but the resentment against the British continued to simmer among the people of India. But those agitations were localized. Children, do you know what is nationalism? Nationalism is a feeling of pride in one's country. It also refers to the desire of freedom felt by people under foreign domination. In India, growing sense of nationalism led to the birth of nationalist movement and eventual freedom from colonial. Let us know reasons for the growth of nationalism in India. Awakening of Indians to their cultural heritage. The translation of Vedas and Upanishads by Max Muller and Williams Jones made Indians aware of their great cultural heritage. The work of Theosophical Society, the Brahmo Samaj, the Arya Samaj, and the Ramakrishna Mission awoke the feeling of pride in Indians. Exposure to Western ideas of democracy and nationalism. English education was introduced to train Indian to become clerk or occupy low-level positions in government service. Educated leaders were inspired by Western ideas of democracy and nationalism. Also, English became a medium of exchange of thoughts which unite people from different parts of country in their fight for freedom. Better means of transport and communication. The rail and road networks and the post and telegraph system set by British helped Indians to unite. Support for revolutionary ideas could spread faster now from one part of the country to another. Growth of the regional press and regional literature. A major factor responsible for the rise of nationalism was the growth of regional language journalism and literature. People like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Subramanya Bharati, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, Rabindranath Tagore, and Ram Prasad Bismil inspired people by their writing in their mother tongue. Economic exploitation by the British. The economic policies of the British had impoverished India. Also, many families in the second half of the 19th century aggravated the pathetic condition of the peasants. Even though the country was in the grip of the terrible famine in 1877, the British government held the imperial darbar in Delhi at great cost to the treasury. This attitude of British further antagonized the Indians. Discrimination against Indians. The maximum age limit for sitting in the Indian civil service examination was further reduced from 21 to 19. This exam was in English and held in England. This reduced the chances of Indians to join civil service. India Arms Act, which restricted Indians from possessing weapons, and Vernacular Press Act, which restricted any provocating writing in regional language against the government, were passed. Albert Bill. In 1883, a bill was passed which provided that a British or a European in India could be tried by an Indian judge. This bill, called the Albert Bill, it was passed to establish equality between Indian and English judge in Indian courts. The English community and other European in India reacted harshly, saying that even the most highly educated Indians were inefficient to try Europeans. So the government amended the bill. The Indians were shocked by this. They realized that they too need to organize themselves at a national level to get equal rights and to have their demands met by the government. Other measures. Several other measures undertaken by the British indirectly helped Indians to unite. The British brought India under a single system of administration. They introduced a uniform code of law for all Indians, irrespective of religion, caste, or creed, and declared all Indians to be equal before the law. And they set up modern industries where people of all castes and religions work together. The founding of the Indian National Congress. Various political organizations came up in different parts of the country. Their demands were small. Surendranath Banerjee brought all the association into one national platform. In 1880, Alan Octavian Hume, a retired British civil servant, founded the Indian National Congress (INC). Some of the prominent leaders of Congress were Dadabhai Naoroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, S. Subramania Iyer, Rahimatullah, W.C. Banerjee, and Dinshaw Wadia. Aims of Congress: to get cooperation of all Indians, to eradicate prejudice of race, religion, caste, etc., to discuss the major problems of India and come out with suggestions to solve them, to request the British to involve Indians while taking administrative decisions concerning India. The second session met at Calcutta, presided over by Dadabhai Naoroji. Dadabhai Naoroji was thrice elected President of Congress in 1886, 1893 and 1906. Because of his long association with India's freedom struggle, he is called the Grand Old Man of India. The moderates and the extremists. Most of the congressmen wanted gradual reforms. They aimed at better and friendly association with the British. They were called as the moderates. The moderates included leaders like Surendranath Banerjee, Firoz Shah Mehta, and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Some Indian leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak in Maharashtra and Lala Lajpat Rai in Punjab demanded Swaraj and self-rule. These leaders were called the extremists because they believe in adopting more extreme measures to achieve freedom. Bipin Chandra Pal and Aurobindo Ghosh were the other prominent extremist leaders. The Partition of Bengal, 1905. Lord Curzon became the Governor-General of India in 1898. He tried to suppress the movement of extremist nationalism. In 1905, he partitioned Bengal for administrative convenience. Bengal was the stronghold of the Congress. Curzon's real reason, however, was to separate East Bengal with its majority Muslim population from the rest of Bengal, and to thus weaken the Congress. It also served to divide the Hindus and the Muslims. The boycott movement and the Swadeshi movement. The leaders of anti-partition movement decided to boycott British goods. People gathered at crossroads and burned the imported cloth that they had. People stood outside the shop selling foreign goods and persuaded customers not to enter or buy goods. Even imported sugar was boycotted. This was called the boycott movement. People also resolved to use only things made in India. This was called the Swadeshi movement. Swadeshi means of one's own country. People began wearing cotton clothes made in India. The British did not react the way the Indians expected. They put many people, including students, in prison. Indians began to boycott not only goods but everything that was foreign. The demand for Swaraj. Under the leadership of the moderate leader Dadabhai Nauroji, the Calcutta session of Congress extended its approval and support to the boycott and Swadeshi movements and agreed to starting of schools by Indians. The Congress also declared as its objective attainment of Swaraj. The split of Congress. There were many differences in opinion between the moderates and extremists. The extremes took Swaraj to mean total freedom from British domination, while for the moderates it just meant increased role for Indians in British administration. These differences brought about a split in Congress in 1907. The rise of revolutionaries. The people were angered and frustrated. Some of them were soon drawn to move violent means of protest. The revolutionaries believed in using the achieve independence. They killed many British people. Prominent revolutionary leaders were Khudiram Bose, Prafulla Chaki, Chidambaram Pillai, Vanchi Iyer, V.D. Savarkar, and Bhikaji Kama. Thinking that the extremist political leaders were responsible for inciting the revolutionaries, the British government also dealt severely with them. In 1907, Lajpat Rai and Ajit Singh of Punjab were deported from India. In 1908, Tilak was sentenced to 6 years rigorous imprisonment and sent to Mandalay in Burma. The Morley-Minto reforms. Along with John Morley, the Secretary of State in England, Minto, Viceroy, drew up a plan to win back the goodwill of the Indians. This was called the India Council Act of 1909 or the Morley-Minto reforms. According to this act, the number of elected members in the Imperial Legislative Council was increased. Indians could now become member of the Provincial Legislative Council. Separate electorates were introduced for the Muslim. That is, some seats were reserved for Muslim and only they could stand for election. The Morley-Minto reforms thus sowed the seed of division between Hindus and Muslim. The formation of the Muslim League in 1906. The formation of the Muslim League was instigated by the British as part of their policy of divide and rule. Muslim leader like Aga Khan was summoned to Simla and made to believe that they should do something to safeguard their interest as Congress was dominated by Hindus. Muslim leaders feared that if the British did leave India, Muslims would have no share in the Indian government. As a result of this feeling, some Muslim leaders set up a separate political organization in the form of the Muslim League. Coronation Darbar. 1911. In 1911, a darbar was held in Delhi to commemorate the accession of King George V to the British throne. Two major announcements were done. One was to reunite Bengal, and the other was to shift the capital from Calcutta to Delhi. The Home Rule Leagues. Some of the Indian leaders realized that unless popular pressure was brought to bear upon the government, they would never have self-rule or home rule. Therefore, between 1915 to 1916, two Home Rule Leagues were started, one under the leadership of Lokmanya Tilak in Pune and other under Annie Besant in Madras. The League worked under the guidance of Congress. The Muslim League joined the Congress. In December 1916, this unity between the Congress and the League was brought about by the signing of the Congress-League Pact, popularly called as Lucknow Pact. The Government of India Act. In July 1918, the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms were announced. Its aim was to gradually develop responsible government in India as a part of the British Empire. These reforms led to the enactment of Government of India Act in 1919. Under this Act, the Provincial Council were enlarged with majority of its members now being elected. A disappointed Congress urged the British government to declare the rights of people of India as British citizens. So children, that is all that we studied in this lesson. Come on, let us revise it. Summary. After 1857, the feeling of nationalism grew as Indians became more aware of the country's rich cultural heritage and were exposed to Western ideas of liberty. In 1885, A.O. Hume started the Indian National Congress. Dadabhai Nauroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Subramanya Iyer and W.C. Banerjee were prominent members. Moderate members like Gopal Krishna Gokhale believed in gradual reforms, while extremists like Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Lala Lajpat Rai demanded Swaraj. In 1905, Lord Curzon partitioned Bengal into two parts to divide Hindus and Muslims. In the boycott movement, people boycotted products imported from Britain, and in Swadeshi movement, they supported Indian goods. The Calcutta session of the Congress in 1906 demanded Swaraj or self-rule. In 1907, the divide between moderates and the extremists led to a split in the Congress. The Morley-Minto reforms divided Hindus and Muslims by creating a separate electorate for the Muslims. Some Muslim leaders started the Muslim League in 1906. In 1911, at the Coronation Darbar in Delhi, Bengal was reunited and the capital shifted from Calcutta to Delhi. In 1915 to 1916, Home Rule Leagues were started by Tilak and Annie Besant. The Montagu-Chelmsford reforms were announced in 1918 and the Government of India Act was passed in 1919. That is all in this topic. Keep learning.